You have to learn how to laugh at yourself. Don't take it so seriously. Well, what were you doing there? Why were you wearing that? Why did you do that? Why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you protect yourself? Why do you make yourself a victim? Why do you want pity and attention from everyone? You're allowing people to mistreat you. You're making excuses for people hurting you because you don't love or respect yourself. I had no answers. Nothing anyone would tell me felt actually true about what I believed or felt, so I blamed myself too. Because we are all responsible for parts that we play in every situation that we are in. I did hurt myself for repeating my problems. I held myself accountable for my responsibilities involving my problems. The boy who came into my bedroom and used my sleeping body was my own fault because I pity-dated him. It didn't matter that I broke up with him because he wanted to have sex and I knew I wasn't wanting that for myself. It didn't matter that I was very clear about what I felt and wanted for me. He found a way to make it happen because I let him. The boy who drugged me and raped me in his car when I was 18 did so because it was my fault. I put myself at that house party where I had no place being. I went with him in his car to smoke with him because he said that he would give me a ride home. It was my fault because I drank and smoked that night. It was my fault for not being smarter as a female. My fault for not dressing like a man. My fault for trusting anyone. It was my fault that it happened again by another guy because I was confiding in him about that night. I should have known better than to try to open up or lean on anyone. I should have known better than to put myself in someone else's house, especially when there's no one else around. I should have known better than to be so gullible. I should have known better than to think I could trust anyone. It was my fault for every single time it happened again by my own partner. My fault because I let him coerce me. My fault because I couldn't take it every time I would say no and he would just keep asking over and over. My fault for being with him and caring about him. It was my fault I let him force pills down my throat and shots of liquor back to back. My fault for feeling safe around him. My fault for connecting with him. My fault for thinking I could trust him. It was my fault for letting people live with me because they had nowhere else to go. My fault for caring because I know how it feels to be in situations that they were in. And my fault for hoping that anyone would have done for me what I would have done for them. My fault for doing any of it because it was what I needed someone to do for me in my past. My fault for thinking I could be a change. My fault for thinking I was making a difference, or my fault for trusting anyone to let me help them without crossing my boundaries or consuming pieces of me. My fault for trusting myself. It was my fault for letting them speak to me the way they were. My fault for letting them use me. My fault for giving them excuses because I understood that sometimes we hurt people that we don't mean to hurt. My fault for forgiving them for being human and struggling. My fault for being a punching bag for them and myself. My fault for trusting that they would ever know or appreciate the sacrifices that I make for them. My fault for trusting them or believing what they say. My fault for seeing their struggles and efforts and considering them someone who is trying because I have struggled, but I have always tried. My fault for practicing treating others how I want to be treated. My fault for not knowing that you also have to teach them how to treat you by what you allow them to do with, around, and for you. My fault for trusting. My fault for being a victim.